Let's be honest, modern medicine is broken. Patients are dismissed, doctors are exhausted, and mental health care is decades behind. So it's time to disrupt the status quo, to challenge a system that fragments care, dehumanizes patients, and burns out clinicians. I'm Dr. Georgine Nanos, and this is The Kind Revolution, a podcast about breaking old paradigms, rebuilding medicine with compassion and science, and reimagining what healthcare can be when we finally get it right. Because change is here, and it's starting with us. Welcome to the revolution. Welcome back to the Kind Revolution podcast. Longevity medicine is everywhere right now. Supplements, IVs, biohacking, and lots of promises about slowing aging. People are spending real serious money trying to optimize their health, but it can be really hard to know what's real and what's just hype. So today's conversation is about grounding the new year in reality, what actually works, and what's backed by science, and how to think about longevity in a way that supports your future self without fear and anxiety. So today I'm joined by the very lovely and brilliant Lauren Luscombe-Holder, our Director of Marketing and Operations here at Kind Health Group. Lauren works closely with patients and our clinical team, helping to translate complex health information into thoughtful and realistic strategies. This is a conversation about fundamentals, brain health, preventive screening, and how to approach the new year with clarity instead of feeling overwhelmed. Welcome, Lauren.
Hello, thank you for having me. I am so excited to have this conversation with you today. I saw you on KOSI the other night and I just thought you did such an amazing job, but there was so much more we could talk about. And so I'm ready to get into it today.
Awesome, because this is one of my favorite topics. We talk about this all the time, every day. This is yep. I'm on a tangent about one of these topics. So fire away.
I love it. Yeah, so obviously, kind of like you were saying, longevity and wellness feel louder than ever right now. We hear what about supplements, biohacking, IVs, and all of this from social media experts. And so anyways, I wanted to kind of get your perspective on what do you think is driving this explosion right now in the wellness industry?
Well, money is probably number one. It's a $1 trillion industry and rapidly growing. So that's a big piece of it. And there's a couple other things happening at the same time too. People are living a lot longer, and the Gen X and baby boomer generation are getting older and looking for ways to optimize their health and do it in a way where they're feeling like they can thrive instead of just survive in their old age. And then I think the other really big part of it is that traditional medicine has failed. I mean, it is a broken disaster. And so patients aren't getting what they need out of the traditional healthcare system. And so and the wellness industry is filling the gap. Like it or not, for better or for worse, this is what they're doing. They're filling the gap. And sometimes the information, some of it is grounded in science, but to be honest, very little.
Yeah, and why do you think people, obviously it's great if everyone wants to live longer and live healthier lives, that's one thing, but what do you think is the reason why people feel such an urgency around aging right now? Specifically, it feels kind of very central to this moment.
It's marketing. It's brilliant marketing. It is really what it comes down to. It's everywhere because of those factors that we talked about. And I think if you are tapping into this kind of primal fear about our mortality, right? We're all going to die, but we don't like to think about that. We want to think we can live forever and control it. And so this makes us feel like we have some agency or control if we're doing something to control our lifespan and and how we age. So it gives us back that sense of control. I think that's one of the big things. And it is, the marketing around wellness right now and longevity is quite brilliant. And there's a lot of money being poured into it so that it feels like it's everywhere for us.
Yeah. Yeah, so when a patient comes into our office and asks you, what actually works, what do you bring them back to?
So I try to always steer back to the fundamentals, which are very like unsexy and like very boring. But unfortunately, that's what works. It's not the detoxes and the cleanses, which we'll get into in a little bit. It's really it's really these core fundamental issue areas to focus on, like our sleep. That's really key. Modifying our chronic stress, regulating our chronic stress in our lives, and our cardiac health, our metabolic health, our muscle mass, and our brain health. And those, like, being able to optimize those areas of our lives is really, and those components of our health, that really determines, not only just determines how long we live, but how well we live as well. So and there's lots of innovative things being done in each of those categories that are based in science, but we have to make sure that we're looking at those instead of the stuff that's not really scientific.
Yeah, absolutely. So you kind of talked a little bit on KUSI and you used this term, which I've never heard before, but now I'm obsessed with it. And you said wellness theater. Can you kind of
Oh,
explain a
yes.
little bit more about that term and unpack it a little bit?
Yes, I heard it somewhere. So I follow a lot of, unlike most people, I follow like a lot of real doctors on Instagram who are like trying to like break down and like debunk all this wellness theater. So it was coined by one of those doctors online that I follow. And I did think it was such a brilliant term because it gives you the illusion that you're doing something that's healthy. But, there's a big difference between wellness theater and real medicine. It is just that. It is an act. It's an illusion. It's not reality. But it makes us feel good. And there might be nothing wrong with that. Like, that's fine. But like, as long as you're going into it with your eyes open and that's what you're doing, then I think that's perfectly fine. But it's the problem. The problem happens when people think that they're doing something that's really helpful when in fact it may be doing nothing or potentially causing harm. The doing nothing part I don't care about. Like, if you want to spend your money and it's not going to do anything for you, great, at least know that. But it's the part when, like, it's going to cause harm that like really gets me going. And I go off about this constantly.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, I loved that term, so I had to bring it up. But I feel like, I mean, not everyone has, the time or the background to obviously research every single supplement or detox that is being marketed to them online. Like, how can someone listening realistically separate real science from all of this hype and over marketing?
Yeah, so I mean, we can get right into the detox and the cleanses, because this is the stuff that like makes me crazy, because anyone that's selling you a detox and a cleanse is literally full of shit. And it is complete and utter garbage. There is, and I'm going to just say it over and over, your liver and your kidneys detox you 24/7. In fact, what often happens when people are doing these untested, unregulated supplements, and these crazy things that people do to detox and cleanse, they are usually creating more toxicity and more damage to their bodies. And I would say at least every 6 months, we have I see at least a patient or two who has had a serious toxic issue from supplements and just doing too many supplements. And that can look like electrolyte disruptions, GI disruptions, sleep disruptions, hormonal chaos, and then like real liver toxicity. I've had a couple of people end up in the ICU with liver and kidney toxicity from supplement overdoses, literally from just buying a bunch of supplements they saw on Instagram and taking them, thinking like, okay, I'm doing myself a favor here. And I mean, I've seen patients almost die from this. So that's what really like gets my blood boiling. And so just because something is marketed as a supplement or as natural doesn't mean it's safe. So what I think a lot of people don't understand is, in this country, the supplement industry is not regulated. Does not have to go through FDA approval. And So they can make some of these crazy ass claims that are based in just complete and utter nonsense. Um, and people fall for it. And you know, these are still manufactured substances that are built, that are being made, they might be being manufactured in a lab in TJ. And so, you're not, it's not like you're doing yourself any favor. It's still, you're still taking like a synthetic product that someone has made that has no regulatory oversight. You don't know where the hell it's coming from. And then, but because someone did a great job marketing it to you, and because it's not coming from, and this is the other big piece of it that we also see, is like, your doctor won't tell you this, your doctor doesn't want you to take it, or your doctor's never heard of this, or this is like some secret, like, amazing thing that they've discovered. Total bullshit. So
I mean, so what do you think is kind of just like overall a good rule of thumb for someone who, say, is on Instagram and is getting sold? This one I see all the time, which drives, it's wild, but it's like, take this instead of a GLP-1. It's the same thing. And it's like not even, has no actual, it's
well,
not
I
actual compounded
there
or anything.
yeah, and again, it's all about the money. So if they don't have the ability to prescribe a GLP-1 because it's so popular right now, that's an opportunity for scammers basically to like sell you stuff that may mimic that. One particular supplement that's out there that's been very popular is one called berberine, which has been known to cause serious or adverse cardiac events. So this is the other thing too. Patients will be on a ton of this stuff, not tell their doctors, but we want to know this because a lot of these have major, major interactions, either with current medications or together, and then, by themselves. The other thing to really be careful about is a lot of these supplements will also, they'll list some like key ingredients that are not necessarily the active ingredient. And then they'll say proprietary blend, which means like, you don't know what the hell's in it. Could be anything. And in the last few weeks, there's been a bunch of FDA recalls on several different supplements that have contained stuff that should absolutely not be in there, that have caused adverse cardiac events. So this is the stuff that like really just upsets me, because it just preys on our vulnerability, and and patients just, it's just patients just wanting to do right by themselves. And I so appreciate that people want to be healthy and want to make these good choices for themselves. And it's just, it's an uphill battle because it's everywhere, like you said.
Yeah. Can you do a quick PSA to everybody, just basically saying kind of exactly what you just said, which is like, tell your doctor the truth about what supplements they're taking. You are not there to judge.
Yeah, no, you can tell me you're on 100 supplements. I will just, you might bring them all in and I might throw them in the trash after you're done. But like, and I've done that many times. And so, and then patients will come in and tell me they're spending like thousands of dollars a month on this stuff. That's the other part. It's not just the health impact, it's the financial impact for people. And I see this a lot with older adults too, but it's across the board. It's young and old that this is happening. So please, please, please tell your doctor, if whatever, anything that you're putting in your mouth that's not a piece of food, we want to know what you're eating too. But if you're taking supplements, anything, like, we want to know. We want to know everything. Tell us everything. We've heard it all. You're not going to surprise us. So yeah.
I feel like from our like from a clinical standpoint, just speaking from our office, we used to worry so much about how much alcohol people were consuming, and the honesty that would come like with that. We would be like, well, okay, they said they have one glass a night, so they probably have a few more.
Yeah.
Um, Now we're all worried about the supplements. Please just tell
Yeah.
us what supplements you're
I
taking.
mean, how many times do people come in? They're like, "Oh, I'm not on anything. I don't take anything," and then they got a supplement list
That's
this
like,
long, like, no joke.
yeah.
And I'm just like, "What are you doing?"
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
absolutely. Pivoting kind of back to the fundamentals of longevity, like we were kind of talking about, I kind of wanted to bring it back to brain health because I know that's something that we're super passionate in talking about. And you say this all the time, but our brain is our command center of our body. So, why is brain health so important to longevity? Why is it so critical?
Yeah. So the aging brain, I mean, if when your brain is under chronic stress, it starts aging at a much faster rate than if it was not under stress. Because in that stress mode, your brain goes into this fight or flight state. And when that happens, this cascade of symptoms follows. So you start to get poor sleep, chronic stress, and then a lot of times that's accompanied by untreated anxiety or depression, and then everything downstream gets messed up. So you get inflammation going up, and that can create a whole host of issues. It can create hormone dysregulation, your metabolism suffers, and then you also get cognitive decline. Like your memory will start to be affected by that, and your ability to execute simple tasks. And so all of that is a big deal, and it's not necessarily coming from dementia, but it's coming from like this whole stress ball that becomes our lives. And if we're not managing that effectively, it has a huge impact on our body. So longevity isn't just about like how long your heart is beating, but also how long your brain stays functional, because it really is the command center.
How does chronic stress and inflammation, how does that accelerate cognitive decline?
So what's happening there is that in your brain, when you are having your brain gets, we have all these areas of our brain that help control our mood and regulate our behavior. So there is an area of the brain called our amygdala, and we have the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex that I'm going to talk about. So the amygdala is like our threat alarm system in our brain, and you can think of it as being like permanently turned on. And when in like a chronic stress state, you're like constantly like scanning for like threats. And so, and it's like it's going on constantly. And when that's happening, you can think about like if you're hearing a fire alarm at all times, it's just it just wears you down over time. And then the other part is the area of your brain called the prefrontal cortex, which regulates your mood and your ability to regulate your emotions is under functioning. So you've got like a complete like mismatch going on in situations of chronic stress. And what happens is your body is kind of revving up, trying to respond to it. And that creates kind of an inflammatory state throughout your body. Your brain is telling your body, like, something's wrong, there's a threat, rev up. It starts secreting tons of cortisol, which is our stress hormone. And cortisol is what really drives that inflammation. So your body's just in this like fight or flight mode constantly. And that's really how that's happening. So it's this kind of long cascade. I sort of oversimplified it, but that's the general gist of it.
No, I feel like you have such a way of us, like helping people understand tough concepts. Cause I mean, I wouldn't know how, like taking it out from like just a doctor speaking about it clinically and relating it to real life. So that made a ton of sense. I'm sure somebody listening is probably going to learn a lot from that. I we talk a lot about brain health, and then something that you spoke about too on KUSI, and you've kind of spoken about it on some other recent podcasts. The Good Life podcast, for example, was about our cardiovascular health
Yeah.
and how cardiac disease is the number one killer more than all cancers combined. Why do you think people don't realize that?
Because it doesn't sell. I mean, again, like I know I'm like I mean, it's funny. Like people are so like everyone's anti big pharma and big insurance, but now we have big wellness, and that is a problem. And so, treating heart disease is not a sexy sell. It's just not. And so, it's much easier to focus on other things. Um, And it's just it's they call it the silent killer for a reason. There are no A lot of times people have no symptoms whatsoever, but it is the number one killer of for all comers, you know, more than every single cancer combined. And so that's something that we really, really need to focus on. And there's so many aspects of our cardiac health that we can be proactive about. Blood pressure is a really big one. Blood pressure is one of the key predictors for stroke and heart attacks. And it's just such a simple thing to do. It's very low tech and easy, making sure your blood pressure is under good control. And a lot of that is tied to our metabolic function, preventing diabetes and obesity, all of that come together. Low aerobic fitness. So that all these things like quietly undermine our cardiac health long before symptoms show up. So people don't think about it if it's not actively right in front of them and it's not obvious. And then, of course, looking at knowing your cholesterol numbers is something I always harp on. That's really, really important. So, kind of that combination is maintaining your weight, aerobic fitness, blood pressure, cholesterol, and then taking very proactive steps aggressively and early is the key, is really like one of the best keys to longevity is being proactive at an early age before you get to the point where like you have these symptomatic outcomes like heart attacks or strokes and things that are going to be debilitating if not fatal.
We're seeing in our office a lot of positive progress with cardiovascular health when using GLP-1s. Can you speak to the science about that a little bit?
Yeah, so the GLP-1 boom is, I think, one of the most important developments in modern medical history. It's really an impressive drug, and it has helped so many people in such a vast array of ways. It's really it's I know a lot of people think about it as a drug for vanity and losing weight, but I can't stress enough how that being overweight, even a little bit, really impacts our longevity and our metabolic and cardiac health. So, being able to control that in such a safe and effective way is really a game changer in medicine. So, what happens when you can regulate that is that you're really down regulating that cardiac risk, because obesity is a big risk factor for diabetes when you're diabetic. um, Obesity is a risk factor for obviously heart disease and for hypertension. It drives up hypertension. Just 5 pounds being overweight can bring your blood pressure up significantly. So when we're mitigating all of those risk factors, then we're making a huge impact on our cardiac health and really improving it in a very dramatic fashion that we've never been able to do with any other drug. So yes, you're doing it with a drug, but at the same time, in doing that, you can probably get off like five other cardiovascular drugs that are just sort of, they were just putting a band-aid on it, where this is really like getting to the root cause of it. And I think that's what's so important about the GLPs, that it's really just knocking it out of the park as far as I'm concerned. I think it is they're the most incredible drugs of our generation.
Yeah, and I feel like we are so pro GLP-1 too in our office. We have so many patients that are doing so well on them. What are some of the side effects and things like people need to kind of know in order to be really successful on these medications?
Yeah, so I mean, they're not for everybody. I mean, they are for most people, do very well on them. But if you have a history of particular kind of thyroid cancer, or history of pancreatitis, or slow gastric motility issues, then that they may not be the right choice for you. But aside from that, which are some relatively few contraindications there, they're relatively safe. And so, but common side effects tend to be constipation and nausea. Those are the most common. And typically and those are typically in the beginning when people are starting the medications, we prescribe anti-nausea pills to make sure that people can tolerate them well. And the key is like very customized titration of the drugs, which is what we do in our office. I think like no two patients of ours are on the same regimen, which makes it a little bit nightmarish for our team to manage. But I mean, but for our patients, that's ultimately what they need. Everything we're so fastidious about just making sure that like we are treating the patient and what's their situation week to week. I mean, and it literally can change week to week. So I think if when you have a GLP provider, making sure that they're checking on you very regularly, making sure that you're having regular bowel movements, that is key. You should be having like at least one large bowel movement a day. And so that's a big thing that people forget, because what the way the GLPs work is they are slowing down your GI tract. And so but you also want to make sure that you're emptying your bowels at the same time. So that's one of the things that we always are managing. So poop.
And obviously, with GLP-1s and losing weight, if you aren't strength training, it is a common side effect to lose some of your muscle mass, which we at our office do a really good job kind of staying ahead of because of the fact that we offer the in-body scans as well to keep track of that. And so, and I feel like everyone, because within the wellness industry, everyone's talking about muscle, which building muscle, which is important, and strength training with women and all of that. It's everyone has heard a ton about it. And
Oh
so
yeah.
obviously muscle building is having its moment right now, which is awesome. But on KUSI, you talked a lot about VO2 max. And so just kind of wanted to get your take on why cardio fitness also matters. And
Yeah.
we forget about that while we're
Well,
lifting our
I
weight.
know it's true. It's almost been like to the exclusion of aerobic cardiac fitness. So yes, muscle mass and muscle building is totally having its moment. Muscle and protein. It's all about muscle and protein right now. Like
Yep.
so which are important, but it's also important to have that. So your VO2 max is a sign of your cardiorespiratory fitness, meaning your aerobic fitness, that you get from aerobic exercise like running, walking, things like that. And not necessarily you have to run, because I hate running. I used to love it, but it's not kind to my body. But just having that, being able to be cardiovascularly fit from an aerobic standpoint is one of the biggest predictors for longevity. And it doesn't have to be what's really, so there's a lot of data that's come out in the last decade showing that it doesn't have to be super high intensity. So, I think maybe 10, 15 years ago, there's a big push on like hit workouts, which are great. And I think if you can do them, that's even better, but you don't have to do them to get the benefit. So the thing that's kind of come out from a lot of these recent studies is what's called zone 2 training. And zone 2 training is like just getting a little bit above your resting heart rate, enough so that, like, say your resting heart rate, so the normal heart rate is somewhere between 60 and 100. So being around like 105, 110. You don't have to be like killing it at like 140. Um, and maintaining that and sustaining that for at least 20 minutes a day has been shown to have a massive impact on longevity. So it doesn't have to be like something crazy. I think that's a big take home message for people to see that it can be simple. So I love my walks. I'm zone twoing like all day long, but it does have a pretty big impact on our longevity. So VO2 max is like your ability to have that cardiorespiratory fitness.
I love it. I want to circle back really quick. We kind of touched on this earlier, but yeah, so you've kind of warned people about all this fear-based health marketing and like Instagram posts that are phrased as such like your doctor doesn't want you to know this or you're aging faster than you think and all this fear-based marketing. We know why it's a red flag, but why do you think people are kind of so hesitant to following advice from actual people who went to medical school?
That's a really great question because our healthcare system has failed everyone. We really have. I mean, it's a complete disaster. And so people have lost faith. And I totally get that. They have lost faith in the traditional healthcare system as it currently exists because in typical practices, they have 5 to 10 minutes if they can even see their doctor, and that may be like once a year, once every 2 years, and that's not going to change. It's not going to move the needle for people, and it's frustrating, and they have maybe 10 other things they want to talk about. And so I think that is, again, like, it's created this huge gap, this huge need. Like, people are, there's more content and more information out there than ever before, and so people want, again, to like take control of their health. And I so appreciate and love that about our patients and about our world, that people are interested. But we, as doctors and people in I don't think the doctors are necessarily responsible. It's really the insurance companies, and I've said this before, it's the insurance companies that have ruined it for everyone. Doctors would love to spend more time with patients, but it's just not built. It's not baked into the system the way it currently exists. So it's that massive brokenness of the healthcare system that is causing all of this, and why there's this distrust. Because if you go to your average doctor and you try to have an in-depth conversation about this, it'll maybe last a minute. No one has time, and it's not their fault. It's because the insurance companies are driving down their reimbursements, so they have to see more people in a day. And no, every doctor would love to spend more time with their patients, and it's not possible right now. And they're stuck, and we're all stuck. And that's why there is this kind of lack of trust, and it's very sad.
Yeah, and I
And
feel like
so,
it's trained patients to kind of have this reactive response to healthcare as well. Like they only go to the doctor if they really need to go.
right, right. So that's what we do differently here. We're the complete opposite. We're focused on prevention. We're seeing our patients all the time, weekly. We're talking to them sometimes daily. We're like so in their business, which is the complete opposite of how the regular model works. And that's why I think our patients are happy. We have these great outcomes, and we focus so much on prevention. But that's not the norm. Um, the other thing too that I see a lot on Instagram are these like self-proclaimed experts that really like gets me going. I can just go off on this one. But if you see someone online and they have the word expert, or if they have, okay, here's the other big one. If they have the initials Dr. in front of their name, and they don't have any initials after that, you can pretty much assume that they're not a medical doctor, because there are only two sets of initials after someone's name in the United States for licensed medical doctors. Just two, and they're MD and DO, and that's it. Full stop. Nobody else. And there are lots of people that do good things. There's chiropractors, naturopaths, optometrists, physical therapists, nurse practitioners. Great. They're all great. But a lot of times people need to stay in their lane and do what they're trained to do. And so when you're way outside your scope, you may be getting advice from someone that doesn't necessarily have the depth of knowledge to treat what you need treated, and could steer you wrong. So, and then, I mean, those are the people that actually maybe have some degrees. Then you get people who have like no qualifications whatsoever, who got like, did a weekend course, and now they're like all of a sudden a menopause expert, or a cellular repair expert, or some other kind of like bullshit expert. So, yes, so those kinds of things, like, people fall for all the time because it sounds sexy. So that's my other.
What do you wish your patients who are probably getting all of this marketing on their Instagram feed, what do you wish they would, pause and ask themselves when they see things like this?
I would say like what do I want and what do I need, and like what's going to really move the needle for me is and I think that's the most important question. Like, and as I was saying earlier, like if you've got all of your other stuff together, if you're like doing everything you can, like a lot of our patients are, we've made sure that they're optimizing all their preventive strategies. And if you want to go spend your money on like all this other stuff, like, things that aren't going to hurt you, and if you want to go do an IV that's not going to hurt you, fine, go for it. If you want to take the supplements, I'm still like anti-supplement, but if you wanted, the the cold plunges and the red light stuff, there's nothing wrong with that. I don't, that's not going to hurt you. It may have some modest like feel good benefit, and so that's important too. So if you want to do this stuff and feel good about it, you want to go sit in a hyperbaric chamber, go for it. It's not going to hurt you, but it is, you're spending a lot of money. Just don't be deluded into thinking that it's going to have some massive impact, because it's not. But if you feel good and you like it, sure, go for it.
Yeah. And I think too, there's not a ton of knowledge about all these real preventative tools. For example, we have the Gallery test. We use Prenuvo. We do extra, cardiovascular testing. We, have the neural check. We have InBody. We have all of these, devices and modalities in our office to help with preventative screenings and help with longevity. But I think it's hard because not a lot of people know that those tests and everything like that exist. And so they're spending, $2,100 on a red light panel when they could be spending $2,100 on, a Prenuvo MRI and getting that.
Right,
Um,
right. Or a Gallery test that looks for like
yeah.
microscopic cancer that's like been well proven and based in science, or using like Emsculpt Neo to help rebuild your muscle mass, or, doing the in vitro genetic counseling, genetic testing. There's so many things that are science based. And so that's the key. And deciding, I mean, if you have unlimited funds and you want to just blow it, go for it, do it all. But like, most people have limited resources to allocate to their health, and so making those choices soundly based in science and getting advice from people that you trust, who are not necessarily looking to like pull one over on you, I think is really important.
Yeah. So we also are in a new year, 2026. And so if someone is listening and wants to step it up this year without burning out, where do you think that they should start?
um what do you mean?
If
I
someone
would say
wants to,
walk, go for a
yeah.
walk, especially if you live in San Diego. It's beautiful today.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
anywhere, I mean, go for a walk. I think that's like the number one starting place, because walks walking outside, you can walk on a treadmill too, but walking outside, I feel, but both do so much for our mental and cardiac health. There's very few things that can really hit both at the same time that dramatically. And that, for me, that's why I'm such a huge fan of walking, because it's such an efficient form of exercise. I love efficiency. It's
Mhm.
really like clearing your mind and helping your heart at the same time. So it's rare to get something like that. And then, starting by going to your doctor, having a conversation, bringing a list of questions, like going over your supplements, getting some of that advanced cardiac testing. And then food, the food that we eat. We haven't talked really about food, but food is a big, big deal. I think there's nothing, no medicine more powerful than what's at the end of your fork. And that is one of the big take home messages too. What we eat, what we put in our bodies is key. Avoiding over processed foods is a big, big deal. Focusing on whole foods. And I know recently there's been some changes in like dietary guidelines, but really avoiding animal proteins is still very, very important for your cardiac health. Really focusing on more of a pescatarian or a diet, and whole fruits and grains is key. In vegetables is really the way forward. So a lot of those animal proteins, although those are very trendy right now, um, those can really have an impact on your kidney health and your cardiac health in a big, big way. So we've seen time and again patients who have a very like high animal fat diet, like who are doing like a keto or paleo diet, have like sky high cholesterol, and then like they stop it completely. 3 months later, it's normal. So, I mean, I've seen this thousands of times. So it's really, again, don't fall for the hype, because the meat and dairy industry are paying for this, these ideas that like you should be eating meat and dairy. No.
And last question, if someone feels behind already in the new year, what would you want them to hear?
Totally fine. You're totally fine. It's okay. Like, you go at your
Yeah.
own pace. And, you know, I think there's so much, again, it's this Instagram, social media world that makes us feel like, you have to remember all of that is like curated nonsense. Like, it's not like, none of it's real. None of it is like,
You could start a resolution at any month of the year.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So all of this like external pressure that we see, um, is really, it's really driven by social media and marketing tactics. I was in Australia recently, and do you know they had this, they banned Instagram, they banned social media for kids under 16. Did you know this? Yes.
I knew
So,
that and I fully support it.
I was talking to people while I was there, and it's like been a game changer for families and for kids. And the kids like really like it. They enjoy it, because it's one thing if like your parents like tell you you can't like be on it, but all your friends are. But when no one's doing it, then the pressure goes away. So that's kind of what I sort of wish for all of us, is that we could have like a a social media holiday. I think that would do a lot of good.
Yeah, I agree. I think alcohol now, a lot of people are, you know, abstaining from alcohol. It's like this new, just for health reasons. And like you can find a mocktail now at any bar,
Yeah,
and it's really changing the landscape of the alcohol industry. Just people deciding drinking doesn't make me feel good and I don't want to do it.
yeah,
Um, and so I think social media, hopefully in the next few years, will have that moment.
I hope so. Yeah. Um, yeah, and I love that that's happening with alcohol, because that's a big thing too that we didn't really touch on. But yeah, and yeah, just that's all I got. What else?
You want to do the outro?
What's my outro? Okay, let me find it. Uh, uh, outro. Outro. Okay. I don't know which one I'm reading, but okay. Uh, Thank you all for joining me today. So, as you know now, longevity doesn't necessarily require fear, urgency, or chasing every new trend. It requires fundamentals, measurement, and thoughtful care. So, thank you so much, Lauren, for helping us guide this awesome conversation, and for the work that you do helping our patients navigate healthcare with clarity and confidence. If this episode helped you feel more grounded heading into the new year, please share it with someone who needs that reminder. If you're interested in working on your whole self and you want to learn more, you can reach out to us to learn about our wellness programs. And this is the Kind Revolution podcast. We will see you next time.
Thanks for joining the Kind Revolution. If this gave you something real, hope, perspective, or a fresh way to think about health, please share it, subscribe, and pass it on. Medicine won't change on its own, but together we can reimagine it and build something smarter, kinder, and create a system that truly heals. This is the Kind Revolution with Dr. Nanos, where science meets compassion and the future of medicine gets brighter, one conversation at a time. Thanks for joining the revolution.